Spring 2021 has been off to a fast start in its first few weeks, following up on a winter season that spoiled us absolutely rotten with quality. My Hero Academia and Fruits Basket's final season will likely be the standard bearers for the spring catalog, while two highly anticipated shows in 86 and To Your Eternity have created a ton of buzz with their first episodes. But there's also room for potential sleeper hits like Vivi, Fluoride Isom, an anime original sci-fi series written by ReZero's Tape Nagatsuki that will likely be the subject of my next video because it's so good. None of this is to mention Zombieland Saga Revenge, Shigehiro, or Combatants Will Be Dispatched, all of which have garnered a lot of viewership on their own. The season is stacked, and there's so many shows I could talk about, and I will talk about Vivi, trust me. But the show I want to focus on today is one that's been the subject of a lot of discussion in the first half of the season, and not necessarily for the right reasons. Koikimo, or It's Disgusting to Call This Love, might be pretty accurate with its title. 3 episodes in, and it's getting hard to watch how unromantic a romance anime can be when one of the love interests just straight up doesn't want to be there. For the purposes of structuring this video, I'm going to split it into 3 parts. First, what the show is all about, then why it makes us uncomfortable, and finally what we can learn from it. But before all that, I want to address some biases and potential criticisms I might receive if this video ever got more than 6 views. First, I understand I'm not the target audience for this show. I am a straight, young, albeit rapidly aging male. This is a manga and show for the female 18 to 49 demo. Some of them might even find the stuff demonstrated in the show romantic in their minds, and I'm not here to tell them not to or to shame them. What I want to discuss is why these things have generated so much discomfort for so many viewers, to shine a light on that vague feeling so we can better understand exactly why we feel that way from what I hope is an objective standpoint. If this video makes you feel some kind of way, whether it's good or bad, please tell me in the comments, and maybe like and subscribe. Koikimo is a josei romance series about Omukasa Ryo, a tall, handsome, charismatic womanizer, and his unrelenting, sometimes unnerving love for a high school girl. After Arima Ichika saves his life and makes sure he's okay, she discovers that Ryo skipped out on breakfast that morning, which in her mind is why he's so tired. Concerned by all this, but also worried she's going to be late for school, she foists her lunch off on Ryo and runs away in what I can only describe as a reverse mugging. He ends up meeting her later, at his house, because she's friends with his high school-age sister, Ryo, spelled with an I instead of a Y, which will make for a fun phonetic game to play throughout this video. Upon learning Ichika's name and thanking her for saving him earlier, Ryo takes the obvious next step of asking her if she wants to make out. Ichika is understandably taken aback by this sudden change and rejects his proposal with prejudice.
Huh?
She takes a moment after to reprimand him for it, but at that point, Ryo has stopped listening. This being the first time in his life that Ryo has ever been told no, he discovers in that moment that he is both a masochist and madly in love with Ichika, who looks on with a mix of pity and disgust. And so the tone is set. So now let's talk about our main couple. Ryo is an acting section manager in a big tech company, but the only work we ever see him do is talk to women who later swoon about how hot and nice he was. He's every woman's dream, and unfortunately, he knows it. Arima Ichika, on the other hand, is a purposefully bland, bookish high school girl who likes anime and is nice. A perfectly normal, uninteresting girl for all the josei manga readers to project themselves onto. You'll recognize this technique from every light novel that's been released in the past 10 years. The self-insert character that ends up being used as little more than a vehicle for the reader. All of this is sort of unfair to Ichika, as we never get to learn anything about her that doesn't directly relate to Ryo. We don't know about her dreams or aspirations, if she has any friends other than Ryo. The only thing we know about her home life is her mom's pretty cool with a dude in his 20s dropping off daily offerings to her high school daughter. Ichika never gets to develop, so it's hard to have any connection with the poor girl beyond sympathy for having to deal with this asshole. So the show has put up some hurdles in endearing Ichika to us, but the girl still tries. Unfortunately, the few times she does stand up for herself and reprimand Ryo, it's played off as a joke, but we'll get to that in a minute. From the day she saves him from getting maybe pretty hurt falling down a couple flights of stairs, she's regretted it. He sends her flowers, chocolates, stuffed animals, all unsolicited and done in very overt ways, be that through his younger sister or just sending them directly to her house. How did he get her address, you ask? Why, he asked his younger sister Ryo, just like he asked her what Ichika's favorite candy is and what kind of shampoo she uses. 2 things he actually specifically requested his sister tell him. After that, he goes to a school festival, takes her picture with that permission, and is a general pest while everyone except anyone who's actually talked to him for more than a minute continues to think he's the coolest thing in the universe because he's hot. Okay, credit where it's due, he stopped 2 students from perving on some girls, but do you honestly think he would have done that if he didn't know it would enamor him to them? I'm gonna stop circling around this. Ryo is a creep who is only interested in Ichika because she's the first woman to ever say no to him. And that's not just me saying that, it's the show. When they were in the station, he was sort of just aloof about the whole thing. He didn't regard her as anything special then. Even when he goes to eat a lunch, he almost throws it out and then judges her dietary choices. Harsh, man. It's pretty clear there's no love lost there. You can even tell when he goes to seduce her for the first time that this is the same act he's used for every girl he's been with. It's only once she turns him down so flatly that he develops feelings for her. So he's not really in love with her. He loves that she thinks he's gross and wants her to insult him more. Even his sister, who is good friends with Ichika and knows exactly how big a jerk Ryo is to every woman he's ever met, happily tells him everything he wants to know about her. Her reasoning for this? Because by selling her friend out to her brother, she feels as if the two of them are closer as siblings, which is something she really wants for some reason. Everyone in the show not only allows but encourages his predatory behavior, including Ichika. And did you notice I barely touched on the age difference thing? Well, neither does the show. Ryo doesn't even think about it, but we kinda have to expect that of Ryo at this point, don't we? Ichika never once brings it up, Ryo's sister never brings it up, Ichika's mother, who brings her the presents Ryo sends her every morning, who has met him in person, does not bring this up. The only time it's been brought up is by Ryo's comic relief friend. And he's not there to do any fancy pants moral posturing about the ethics of dating a teenager, he's there to congratulate his friend on getting with a high school chick. Very cool and not weird. I'm getting angry, let's move on. There are a number of things about this show that have made us uncomfortable, but for my own sanity's sake, let's narrow it down to 2. First, the age gap is weird. This might just be a Western audience thing, since sensibilities regarding age of consent are different in just about every culture, and I'm not about to get into that sort of stuff. I'll leave it to my libertarian contemporaries. But to sum up, in Scott Pilgrim, the narrator sets the scene by telling us he's dating a high schooler. It's not doing that because it wants to give you the impression that everything is normal and fine for Scott. The other, and I believe more substantive reason we feel uncomfortable when we watch this show is because of the way Ryo generally acts, speaks, and interacts with Ichika. He showers her in gifts she doesn't want, he doesn't respect any physical or emotional boundaries she tries to set, and he attempts to seduce her at every possible turn despite her constant and clear rejection of his advances. He even goes so far as to scare off a potential rival in love who is in the same class as her and would be a totally appropriate character for her to have a relationship with. All of this to say that Koikimo doesn't feel like a romance so much as it feels like a prequel to a crime of passion. And there's the argument to be made that I'm judging their relationship too soon, that I have to wait and see how their dynamic develops before I can render a final verdict on it. And sure, I can see that she's slowly warming up to him and that he has moments of genuine kindness mixed in with his scumbaggery. But that doesn't, nor will it, make the show better, and the reason why is because the basis for their romance is fundamentally flawed from the outset. They don't have any chemistry outside of Ichika trying to create a little bit of personal space from her handsome stalker, and one of the characters doesn't like the other. I want to make this clear. What we've watched in the first 3 episodes is a man unapologetically forcing himself on a high school girl despite her constant protests. So when you set your character's baseline like that, it makes it really hard for you to turn around 8 episodes later and say, oh yeah, she grew to love him, because then it feels like Stockholm Syndrome more than actual romance. Oh, she smelled his cologne after he violated her personal space? That's romantic. At least she reprimanded him for that right after, not that it had any effect. Oh yeah, let's talk about that too. So whenever the show wants to act like Ichika is a real character, they'll have her rebuff Ryo's advances. Sometimes verbally, sometimes more appropriately. This would be more satisfying if he wasn't also enjoying it. This would be good, and giving Ichika some actual backbone would be great, but they undermine the effect of that scene when every time she does it, Ryo just squeezes and rides in joy because he likes being punished for being a creep. Once he does this, Ichika loses all determination and composure, and the two have banter until the subject is dropped entirely. So the show recognizes that he's being weird, but much like Ryo himself, they don't bother to actually do anything about it. They're trying to have their cake and eat it too, by shallowly addressing the underlying issue in their dynamic and then trying to laugh it off. This results in entire scenes feeling completely empty and disingenuous. But I think what makes us the most uncomfortable about this is how much it reflects what we're seeing in the real world. This sort of relationship has, unfortunately, been pretty commonplace for a long time, but we're just now acknowledging the toxicity of it thanks to women speaking up about their mistreatment. We used to see Rio's actions as kind and chivalrous because we never stopped to consider the feelings of the women they were being given to. Maybe she's embarrassed by this behavior. Maybe she doesn't actually like him. Maybe she's afraid of him. It didn't really matter since everything looked fine on the surface. The fact that this sort of behavior is something I could easily see mirrored by someone in real life, or that I personally might have seen and not recognized at the time, gives me pause. And I guess that can bring us on to our final section. I think the biggest takeaway here is to understand how our actions can affect others, even if we have nothing but good intentions. Imposing our will, regardless of how the other person feels, is not a functioning relationship. It's a hostage situation. We need to understand that the idea of consent in a relationship exists beyond the scope of just physical intimacy. If someone rejects in advance, whether it's something simple like a hug or offering to buy them a drink, we need to be able to accept the word no. It doesn't necessarily mean anything bad about us, we just have to be able to respect the boundaries of others. And it's easy to joke and say stop trying to conflate Japanese cartoons with real life stuff, but that sentiment is widely dismissive. Just because it's a show doesn't mean we don't end up taking messages away from it, even if we don't realize it at the time. Shows like Avatar can show us how to be kind and respect the life of every living thing, just the same as The Promised Neverland second season can show us how to burn through a mountain of goodwill faster than CD Projekt Red. And I'm not going to tell you not to watch the show, though. If you don't feel like yelling at your TV every few minutes, I'd say give it a pass. There is merit in watching it, of course, if only to see it as a cautionary tale of sorts. These are the hallmark signs of an uncomfortable, one-sided relationship, and those signs are worth being aware of, since they can show up in your daily life just as easily as your Crunchyroll feed. Oh god, I'm asking anime fans to differentiate between anime and real life. This whole video was point! Thank you for watching, and if you like this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing. I'm going to try to make more of these videos, and I'll likely increase the scope beyond just anime, so if you have any ideas or suggestions for new videos, leave them in the comments. I'd love to hear them. Also, I don't really know how to end videos, so I'm just gonna